You're listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. Just a quick heads up before we get started with this episode, I wanted to let you know about a free resource for listeners of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. That means you. If you are planning your next trip abroad, or if you're just getting back out into the world again, maybe you're going to an event or to a festival or to a meetup, that you need to be prepared for what to say when you meet someone for the first time. Download our free Spanish conversation guide so that you'll be prepared to have a conversation with anyone that you meet for the first time in Spanish. We give you a list of the most common questions that you'll be asked and that you may want to ask someone when you meet them for the first time, along with the responses so that you can be prepared when you have that conversation in less than 30 minutes. So to get your free conversation guide, just go to SpanishConversationGuide.com. Simple, right? SpanishConversationGuide.com to download your quick guide to prep for your first Spanish conversation. Have you ever been in the middle of a conversation in Spanish and everything is going well up until someone asks you a question like, ¿Qué hiciste ayer? What did you do yesterday? And you realize at that point that you can only actually speak using the present tense. If this has happened to you before or it's something you're struggling with now, this episode is for you. I'll explain how you can go from stumbling over your words and pausing in the middle of a conversation while you try to visualize that humongous Spanish grammar chart and search for the right word in your head. And oh, by the way, the conversation is still going on and people have moved on while you do that. Today, we are going to cut through all of that confusion and I'll explain the smart way to master the past tense in Spanish. Así que vamos a empezar. Let's get started.
Bienvenidos! Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast, the show for Spanish learners that love music, travel, and culture. Close your grammar textbooks, shut down the language apps, and open your ears to how Spanish is spoken in the real world. Let us show you how to go from beginner to bilingual. Here is your host, certified language coach, Tamara Marie.
Hola mi gente, bienvenidos al episodio 131. Welcome to episode 131 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about the smart way to master the past tense in Spanish. Now, unlike English, Spanish has several different ways that you have to actually conjugate a verb or different verb forms to use when you're speaking in the past tense. That's why you see those huge grammar charts, which, by the way, is not the best way to really commit those to memory. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But it's the reason why you see the complexity with Spanish grammar in general is that there's just more ways or more forms of the verbs in Spanish that you have to use when you're talking about the past tense. And there are different situations when you use each one. That can make this topic really, really intimidating and really overwhelming when you're learning the language because it just isn't something that we're used to. In English, if I want to say I went to the store, I just say I went to the store. I don't have to think about how often I went, when it happened, have I finished going to the store or not? Am I going to go to the store again? There are some different considerations when you're choosing which past tense to use in Spanish. But the good news is, like anything else, there is a smart way and an efficient way to approach learning the past tense. And I think, or at least I hope, by the end of this episode, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable with the topic and you'll feel like you have a plan of action for how you can move forward. Now, just as a heads up, if you stick around to the end, I will be sharing with you that we are kicking off a boot camp actually this week. So you have to sign up by Sunday, este domingo, if you want to participate. But we're going to actually be walking you through some exercises to help you master the Spanish past tense in our July boot camp. And this is something that we're trying out because we've had several people ask about this topic and say, Tamara, I can only speak in the present tense. I'm really struggling with all these different verb conjugations in the past. So we decided to just do this boot camp for those of you who want a little bit more intensive study since it's summertime. Some people are on a little bit of a break. Here in the U.S., we have just got through 4th of July weekend, which, wow, that's like the unofficial halfway point in summer, right? But hopefully now you have some leisure time to devote to mastering this nagging skill, right? It can be so frustrating when you're doing so well with your Spanish, you're nailing your vocabulary, your pronunciation's improving, you're having conversations, and then you can't talk about something as simple as like, what did I do today with proper or correct grammar? So I'm going to help you with that today. And also, like I said, you stick around to the end, you'll learn about how you can join our boot camp that starts this week. But before we get started, I did want to shout out to one of our listeners who actually, if you didn't catch it, a few weeks ago, we did an episode about how to 10x your Spanish vocabulary with audiobooks. And this is a great way to build your vocabulary. If you missed it, please go back and listen to episode 128. If you're interested in something else, another great activity to do during the summer, while hopefully you're able to at least take some time off, hopefully travel depending on where you are in the world. I know things are, the situation is different depending on where you are, but definitely check that out if you're looking for a way to enjoy some amazing stories and also improve your Spanish vocabulary. But one of our listeners who on Instagram is Bossy Bees said that this is a great idea. I am doing this. Even as a native Spanish speaker, my brain needs to hear it to keep it fresh. I do not live with any Spanish speakers, and it could be weeks before I even see someone that looks like me at work. I needed this today. So I wanted to just shout out to Bossy Bees. Gracias por la reseña por Instagram. Thanks for shouting us out on Instagram. And I really do hope that you found a book that you love to listen to practice this skill and keep your Spanish fresh. And I will be doing an episode about how to not forget things that you learn in Spanish coming up here this month. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, hit that subscribe or follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you will not miss that episode. Because I know a lot of us, we learn things in Spanish all the time, but one of the biggest problems of language learning is that we forget what we learn. So I'll be talking about how to prevent forgetting what you learn a little bit later this month on the podcast. But for now, let's jump into today's topic, which is the smart way to master the past tense. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, there is more than one way to speak in the past tense in Spanish. It's not just a matter of, okay, if I did something in the present, the future, or the past. There are many more levels and layers to this, and it depends on not only how often you did something in the past, but also if the action has completed or not. And there's several other criteria. I'm not going to be able to go